Welcome to the Zen Den with me, Nikki Acute. I am absolutely honoured to be here at Subtle Radio celebrating International Women Day today. And I'm equally as honoured to be joined by the incredibly insightful Formosa, radio presenter and creator of Mental Health in Music. She's here to share her story and just how she got involved with such an incredible movement. Thank you so much for joining me.
What an absolutely sick intro. Thank you so much.
That was a good introduction, wasn't it? But do you know what? I could have said so much more as well, because you've done so much in music and in your personal life as well for this industry. And I'm so pleased that you're here so we can talk about it.
Thank you so much for having me.
That's okay. Welcome. So I guess let's start by talking about you, talking about and then we'll talk about mental health in music after.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So tell us about your journey in music. How did you get involved and what you're doing with it now?
So I started, I've always been a writer, but I started writing for a website called Once Upon a Grime. I started writing reviews for them and write-ups. I also worked with yourself doing press releases for Spenshell, and that led on to me writing for Keeping It Grimy, and doing some freelance work on press releases and whatnot.
So were you always into writing before you started with music writing?
Yeah, so I had, I started writing in college, but I've written kind of all my life, things like journals and diaries and stories and things like that. And after college, I started a blog for myself, and it was like a thought blog talking about my experiences, my life, like lessons and journey and things like that. And that's how it started, really.
Amazing. So it kind of sounds like you've always had that element of, I guess, like self-reflection, I suppose. And then would you say that music come after, or maybe at the same time?
Yeah, I think I've always had the self-reflection element. I think that music followed on from that, because it was my passion for writing that actually took me into, I would say, the internet world to start writing. I originally started with a blog for myself, and then I started writing for an advice website, and it was like a how-to, those type of things. So started doing that, and then that led on to music, and the music came from my love of grime, growing up with grime. That's my genre, that's my generation. Yeah, all of that.
Grime and also dubstep?
Grime and dubstep, yeah. I can think back to 2009, DMZ. Oh my God, that was the transition between grime music and dubstep, and we were just on the border, and it was just so fresh then that people were like, what is this sound? Where is it going? And we kind of already had that inkling that it was going to be something big, so we were just witnessing it all. It was amazing.
So what was it about dubstep?
Do you know what? It's the bass, first of all. It's the, I would say, the samples from the reggae, old school reggae era, the atmosphere when you go to a rave. I've never been to a rave that has had the same vibe as a dubstep rave. I remember being in my first one, and the DJ did such a sick mix, and people started clapping. And I was like, what is this? Talk about mega appreciation for the DJ.
It was respect.
It was respect. Yeah. Everyone in there was friendly. The vibe was nice. If you went on your own, it wouldn't matter, because you'd meet people there. Everyone was really friendly. It was like nothing I'd experienced, and I still haven't found anything to match that.
So what would you say was the point where music became or changed from being like a personal love into something that you wanted to work in?
I think that came from me starting to write for Once Upon a Grime, but maybe towards the end of that, when I started working for Keeping It Grimy, and I thought, I'm then doing freelance work, so a bit of everything. There was a point where I was like, hang on a minute, I can do this. This is something that I really, really enjoy, and I can do it, and I can do it at my own pace, on my own time. And I get so much out of it, being in an industry with music that I love. What more could you want?
And I guess, do you find that you have the kind of similar mentality to the people that work in the industry that you're involved with as well?
Yeah, I think so. I think most of the people that I meet have either grown up with grime or they've been in the scene a long time. So I think we come from the same place. We have the same, grime is not just a a music, it's a lifestyle, it's a genre, it's the way you grow up, it's the way you talk, it's the way you articulate yourself. And I think when you meet like-minded people like that and you realize that you can be a part of something without having to be an artist, I think it's quite magical, because you realize that you can contribute to a scene without actually having to be the person with the mic in your hand. No pun intended. Yeah.
Except for now, yeah.
Except for now.
So it's like, you can tell that you have such a passion for this music. And would you say that that's, well, do you know what I want to explore with you is, we've spoken about music, right? So where does the mental health element come into that? Was it something that happened in your personal life that made you feel like you needed to share that in the industry? Or was it something that you saw in the industry that you felt like you could maybe, like you said, contribute to it?
So I've been speaking about mental health online for quite a while, and I was involved with a online movement called Mental Movement Magazine, and I was their editorial assistant. And we were speaking about how we confuse my love of grime and writing for something with something in the music scene, and kind of fuse these ideas together. And we came up with the idea of what was originally called mental health in grime. And it started on Insta Live during lockdown, and I was absolutely petrified. I had never spoken online before. I don't really speak to many people in the industry. No one had heard my voice. No one really knew what I did, what I was about. And here I was sitting on Insta Live talking to people about their mental health. So it was a nice fusion of bringing my mental health advocacy into something that I love.
So I guess for people that don't already know, so as you've mentioned already, you started on Insta Live during lockdown, right? Mental health in grime, as it was known then, was it weekly that you were doing the shows?
So, well, yeah, every week on a Friday. I think it was about
5:30?
2 or 3 o'clock.
Oh, okay, yeah, a couple were a bit later as well.
Because the ice cream van used to come around and disturb me every time, and everyone would be like, "Oh my God, you've got an ice cream van."
But also just to say as well, like, considering you were just starting out as what you were becoming known as a presenter, the amount of incredible names that you had involved with that series, and you only run 11 episodes on your Insta Live, right? But you had people like Logan Sama, you had Josie, you had just incredible people that have had such an impact on the scene that you were just getting into, and you got them involved. And not only did you just get them involved, but you got them to open up as well in a way that I've not seen other presenters be able to do. So could you tell us about, what was it specifically about those people within the grime industry that you wanted to show everyone that it was an open book, like you could talk about mental health in that scenario?
I think I picked the people that I saw had a story to tell online. So it's just, we open up a lot of ourselves on Twitter, Instagram, whatever, and seeing what these people had tweeted and what they were talking about, I thought to myself, they've got a story. You can tell who's got a story, and it's nice I wanted to give them a platform where they could come forward and say more than what they could say in a tweet, where they could really let go, talk about themselves, and bring up things that maybe they hadn't spoken about with anyone else in any other interview. Mental health is not something that we speak about a lot in the music industry. So maybe that appealed to some of my guests. It was something different. I wasn't going to ask them the standard questions about their music or their career. We were going to dig a little bit deeper. And maybe that attracted them to what I was trying to do.
Most definitely. And of course it would have attracted the listeners as well, because like you said, you're not asking, how did you get your name? What's your favorite top 10 tunes? It wasn't like the generic standard kind of interview questions. You were really like delving deep. And during those interviews, because I can imagine it wasn't the most comfortable at times as well, talking about such a vulnerable topic with people that they'd never spoken about before in public. But during those interviews, did you find that there were like common themes? Because you're talking about a group of people who, although are very different to each other, they also have similar experiences, right? They've come together because of music. So did you find that people had, I don't know, maybe similar concerns or issues that was the same, or anything that kind of comes with working in music, perhaps?
I think there was a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety, especially in the earlier ones that I did on Insta Live.
Would you say that's because of the time, because it was lockdown, or because of the industry?
I think because of the industry, and I think people had some personal issues that contributed to that. And I think being in lockdown and having that space to talk, because what else will we doing inside? People would come forward and talk about that. And maybe lockdown highlighted some of those issues, but maybe they had already been there. And it was nice to hear stories about not just how lockdown had affected people, but situations in life. I think sometimes I felt there was a juxtaposition between the artist and the person. So, you know, the artist will pick up the mic and start spitting, but I heard stories of, you know, people having panic attacks at radio stations, or, you know, standing in a room really quietly before they go on, not speaking to anyone, not looking at anyone, and then grabbing the mic and spitting the greasiest bars. And it's like, how does that manifest itself? Where does that come into play? So there was quite a lot of issues between that. And we also got to see the artists open up. So they weren't just opening up as the artist. For example, we had Tommy B, who talked about addiction. So he was talking about his career as Tommy B, but, you know, the addiction comes from the person Tommy. So yeah, it was quite interesting.
How interesting. Yeah, and you could probably sit for hours even just with one person just to talk about that and kind of pick that apart. So a common theme is almost having, I don't want to say split personality as if it's like a medical, you know, term, but having two hats, I guess. Like the real person, you know, the government name type person, and then their artist who perhaps is, I guess, a character.
Yeah, and I think some of that character came out in lyrics, but then you'd get little glimpses of the actual person by a couple of lines they might say, but no one's going to pick up on those two lines. They're going to pick up on the, you know, the hype bars, the grease bars, without actually saying, you know, mate, are you all right? And I was coming in and saying, hang on, I've heard that in your song. We're going to talk about it now. Because it sounds like you've been through something. I think sometimes people were a little bit surprised that I'd picked out some of these lines of their songs, and then I wouldn't say had to, but then I was putting it to them that they could explain about it. And it was, it was quite, I guess, insightful.
And I noticed it as well, actually, because as I said earlier, I've watched back like quite a few of your interviews recently whilst we've been prepping for this one. And I guess, have you noticed that they felt, when you pick out those couple of lines that you mentioned, do you think they felt seen? Like they felt like the real person had been seen by you, like you kind of seen through the character?
I think so, yeah, because I tried not to, in order to talk about mental health, you have to pick at the things that maybe are not right in front of you. So the things that are, you know, you read in between the lines. So you've got a whole track, and I've picked out 2 lines where it said that you've grown up with a, you know, an abusive parent, and I want to talk to you about that. And I think that can only be described as being seen. And we must not take away from the fact that these artists were so open, they wanted to talk about these things. So to come through and, you know, be hit with that and then have to explain it, so to speak, is quite a big thing. Yeah, definitely, especially if it's the first time that they're doing it.
Why do you think it's so important to to do what you're doing, to highlight mental health, to highlight, or even just discuss, really, to open that conversation? Why is that so important to you?
Because of my own struggles with mental health. I literally feel it's my mission to break the stigma surrounding mental health. And my way of doing that is bringing it to an area that I'm involved in, that I have a hand in, and using my little space of the internet, or my corner of the industry, to start the change here before I branch out anywhere else. Literally that. That
sounds exciting. I'm going to come back to that a bit later.
Cool.
Yeah. So it's incredible. It is incredible what you do.
Thank you.
Do you feel like after you've done, well, now since you've done so many of these interviews and speaking with so many different people about this, were you surprised at the struggles that so many people go through? Or have you come across people who are 100% happy and completely content? Or does it tend to be, it's actually more common than we think?
I think it's more common than we think. And it is surprising to me because, you know, you look at some of these artists and you don't think, hey, he's going through A, B, and C. And then when he tells you, you're like, oh my gosh. Predominantly, I've spoken to more males, which is why I use the term he. But repeat the question for me. Sorry, I've lost my train of thought.
Were you surprised about how common mental health struggles and issues are?
Yeah, I definitely was. And what's also surprising is that it's still common, but no one speaks about it. So you could be in a room. We had an example of an interview with Funk Butcher, and you could have two rival people in a room, and one person's feeling really anxious and really scared because they're rivals in the room, and they're both at opposite ends of the room, but no one is actually coming out and saying like, mate, are you all right? Or what's going on here? It's just all held down until everyone knows what's going on in the room, but no one actually addresses it. And then I had the interview with him where he's bringing it up, and it's like, to me, why didn't someone say, are you okay? What's going on? But it's not that kind of environment.
Do you think that's perhaps because there is a disparity between the conversation being very much more open on the female side of things than it is for the men? Because, I mean, hopefully, fingers crossed, it looks like that's beginning to change, or it is changing now. But do you find that men are perhaps a bit more closed off to these discussions?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's about how to approach it. I mean, I think men find it difficult to, I would just want to say, come out and say it. You can have a conversation. You could say, yo fam, what's up? How you good? And then that'll be it. That's the end of the conversation. To then go on and be like, how's your mental health? Or, what have you been up to lately? Or how's your life? Sit down and talk to me. Yeah, it's not really that kind of party. And I think if it was to happen, it's more females that would say, are you okay? Are you all right? I've seen that you're not, type of thing. And even more so in the music industry, because it's like, we've got this persona, we've got this front to put out there. So everyone is putting out their front and no one's saying what they really feel. So when someone says to you, you good, are you okay? It's like, yeah, I'm fine. Yeah. But inside, so like different story.
This character that they've created, perhaps, especially if they are an artist, or even if they're not an artist, some people even just work behind the scenes. They have a character that they kind of step into when they're at work.
Yeah.
Do you feel like perhaps that's what the disparity is? That's what the disconnection is? It's like this character that they've built that's, I don't know, is like he's strong-minded and says what, like talks about certain things. He doesn't talk about mental health. Do you think perhaps that's part of it as well?
I think it's a bit of that, and I think it's a bit of trust as well, because I think people are less likely to talk to someone they don't know, less likely to open up to someone in the music industry, and less likely to show people the real them in any kind of circumstance. It's funny because, I say they're less likely to do these things, but then they make tracks where they've talked about things that have happened to them in their life. So it's like, who are you really talking to? Are you asking for help, or are you just making tunes and you want this to be glossed over, or do you really want to talk about it? Yeah.
One of the questions that you commonly ask in your interview segments is, do you think that, and forgive me, I'm paraphrasing, but do you think that creativity is linked to mental health? So I want to put that question to you.
I do.
Yeah?
Yeah. Why? I haven't worked out what comes first or what is a result of the other, kind of like chicken and the egg. But I think there is a link between creativity and, I want to say, well-being, mental health, maybe poor mental health, for want of a better phrase. It's just talking to artists and people in the industry and the research that I've done and what I've come across that makes me think that. And I feel like certain situations that artists are in, maybe being in the studio for long hours, maybe only writing music when they're down, like you've said before, or not showing people the real them and having to keep that all inside, can contribute to poor mental health, as well as life situations and whatnot. Yeah, it's a tricky one.
Yeah, it is
to work out.
Perhaps it's on each individual basis as well, really.
Yeah, I think so. But that is something that I always have in the forefront of my mind when I'm interviewing people, and I'm thinking, is this something that is apparent? Is there any evidence to support this? What was going on with the artist and with the individual to connect with their creativity?
And how do you, because you've been doing this for, I think, about 2 years now?
Yeah. So it was
2020?
May 2020.
There you go. Yeah. So have you seen a change? Perhaps not even in the interviews that you've done, but as the scene as a whole, are you seeing any change in the discussion around mental health?
I was going to talk about the internet because I think that's where the most of our basis of our scene, our life is on. And I think I've seen more open tweets on Twitter. I've seen people asking if people are okay. I've seen people tweet things and say they're not doing too well. The people that I follow, I regularly check in on them and they're open to speaking about how they are. you know, when I'm talking about the struggles that I'm going through, people have said to me, are you okay? Which is really, really nice. So yeah, I've seen a bit of a change. I still feel like we've got a long way to go, but I'm trying to be the example so I can see the example, if that makes sense. So I just focus on what I'm doing, and hopefully others will follow suit and it will become a habit.
Absolutely, because it does feel like the conversation has opened up, even outside of the music industry, just in culture as a whole. It feels like, maybe to you as well, like that conversation has developed a lot over the last 10 years.
Yeah, and not just in you know, our circle, or since I've been doing this, you know, you've got stars like Lady Gaga who talks about her mental health. You've had Eminem talk about his mental health. And even though they may not be music that you listen to, they're still set an example where they're talking about their struggles. And if someone with that bigger following can do it, we can all do it. So yeah, it's cool.
Definitely. So has there been any interviews that you've done and they've said something and it's just been a bit like really insightful, maybe even a bit of an epiphany, you know, something that's really impacted you?
Yeah, the one that comes to mind is Name's Bliss. We were talking about his faith in God, and we were talking about forgiveness, and he has a rocky relationship with his dad, and he was talking about forgiving his dad. So which he explained to me requires no work from his dad on that part, but it all comes from inside and his relationship with God. God has said, or not said, but God has shown him that he should forgive because it releases the pain that he's feeling. And that really, really touched me.
Amazing.
Yeah. And I even had a conversation with him after that, and it led me to forgive someone that I'd had, I won't say grudge, but I'd had an issue with for so many years. And I realized that, you know, when we don't forgive, we're holding on to something, we're reliving it, we're ruminating over it. Situation's long gone, but we're here still living with it. And when you decide to forgive and let go, the feeling is absolutely amazing. It's
absolutely
a freeness like no other.
That's it. But that's one of those skills where perhaps it's not an instant fix. You know, someone might hear this conversation and it might resonate with them, but perhaps they can't fix it within 24 hours, you know?
Yeah, it takes time. It's a decision first to say, yeah, I'm going to forgive that person, but it takes work, and it takes belief, takes faith, and takes patience, but it can happen. Yeah.
Absolutely. And do you have any words of wisdom, you know, things that you've picked up over the last, not even just the last 2 years, but in your whole personal journey when discovering and finding out more and improving mental health? Like, is there any words of wisdom that you would like to share?
Wow, that's a big question. A really, really big question. One thing that comes to mind is change the way you look at things, and the things you look at will change. You taught me that one. One of them is holding on to anger is like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die.
Which is the same as what you just said about that conversation with Funk Butcher, right?
Yeah.
It's anger, forgiveness, you know, the same thing.
Name's Bliss. Yeah. I think learning that tough times don't last. This shall pass. This too shall pass. These are the things, kind of, you can call them affirmations if you like. And when you're going through dark times, these are the things that you have to say to yourself. You don't believe them because you're in a dark place, but the more you say them to yourself, you'll either come out of that dark place or you'll start to believe them. One of the two will happen. And when you come out the other side, you will see that what you're saying is actually true, which is harder for us to see when we're in dark times. But when we come out of the other side, we can see, actually, yeah, I wasn't lying to myself. I was telling myself the truth. It did pass, and I'm okay now. That's
it. It's almost like your understanding of that, what could be considered as like just a quick quote, right? You know, there's Instagram accounts you follow and it's just a quote, and
I'm aware that I've given you like 5 quotes.
No, but it's true. You feel nice for 5 seconds and then you forget what it said. But like you said there, it's like, it kind of goes in like a little earworm. And then when you do eventually get out the other side of it, whether that's a day, a month, a year, or however long, it almost feels like it has made sense for the first time, right?
Yeah, there comes a time where that happens. And I think affirmations and talking to yourself kindly, being kind, being patient with yourself and loving yourself are things that really, really help during dark times. And, you know, these things breed confidence, they breed happiness, they breed joy. You know, we can't always be happy, but when we have those dark times, if we have those conversations with ourselves, they really, really, really do help. And I can't stress that enough.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we might have touched on this when we spoke last. But as you were talking then, I was thinking, you know, the term toxic positivity. Yeah. It's another one of those buzzword things that's going around, right?
Yeah.
But could you explain what that is and what your understanding of it is?
My understanding of toxic positivity is, an example is, I'm feeling really down today. My life's really crap. I don't want to, you know, I just don't want to be here. I've had enough. Just look on the bright side. Everything will be fine. Don't need to think like that. What's wrong with your life? Why are you depressed? Toxic positivity is glossing over your true feelings in order to, I don't know, rid someone of their negativity, so to speak. And I think it's more so for the person who is actually giving you the positivity more than yourself. It benefits them. They might not be ready to hear how you're really feeling or what's going on. So it's easy for them to say, just think positive. They've given you a little bit of help and they're on their way. But when actually, if you ignore the feelings that you're feeling and you're turning to positivity, you're not actually dealing with the issue. In order to deal with our issues, we have to first feel them, think about them, go through them, and come out the other side.
So kind of like masking over the real issue that kind of needs to be dealt with. Yeah.
Another quote that I've seen is good vibes only. I hate that.
Yeah, it has a time and place, doesn't it? You know, if you go into a bar and it's like a neon light or in a coffee shop or something, good vibes. Yeah. But like to suggest that anyone in the world, no matter what their lifestyle is, can live positively 100% of the time, it's just like totally unrealistic.
It's unrealistic. And those people that try to live through that mantra, that good vibes only, that think positively, I think ultimately in the end, there is a negativity to it. And I don't think, it's just impossible to sustain that. Life is not like that. Life is up, down, swings and roundabouts, round and rounds and roller coasters. You're never going to be one emotion. You're always going to be multiple at the time or throughout the day, you know, and the sooner we accept that about ourselves and about life, I think it's a little bit easier to handle.
Definitely. And it's what keeps life interesting.
Yeah.
If you were happy all the time, you probably wouldn't feel happy anymore because you don't have a comparison, right?
Yeah, imagine being on one level for the whole time, you know, just in the middle. What kind of life is that? Where's the experience? Where's the joy? Where's the, you know, the thrill, the rush? What comes with that? Yeah. We don't experience things at one level. We experience them on multiple levels.
Absolutely. So, and I'm sure we've spoken about this before, like those, you know, plateaus and the ups and downs. Those downs actually build your experience. They build your character. They give you depth. Really, and kind of prepare you for the things that perhaps are going to happen, because everyone has shit that happens, right?
Yeah, and when things don't go your way, you know, if you've been in a situation where it's happened before and you know that you can come out of it, that's going to prepare you, rather than someone who's like, you know, good vibes, we're just going to live up here all the time, and something really bad happens and it really, really crushes them. And that's when you can find it harder to come out of your hole than if, you know, you're a bit more realistic about what life is. So toxic positivity is not a realistic avenue to go down with regards to how you approach life. It's just not the thing. It's not
definitely
the one.
And that's certainly something that you do with mental health and music, is you allow the space for people, I mean artists, industry people generally, to feel comfortable to talk about those places that they've been to talk about perhaps the less glamorous side of the job that they've picked to do. And also just, I guess in a way, like you almost celebrate it when you're having those conversations with them. You allow them to feel safe and know that it's okay.
I think
it's such a simple and powerful thing though, isn't it? It's okay. And I get that from your interviews.
That's really, really, I love that. I love that you've got that from my interviews, because that's the message I'm trying to get across. It's okay to feel what you're feeling. It's okay to be, you know, up, down, all around. It's okay to be in a hole. It's okay to have experienced this. We all experience different things. And the more we talk about what we have experienced, the more you will realize that there is a tribe of people who have experienced what you've experienced. So, you know, you're not the only person with maybe a parent who wasn't so loving, or has been in a depressive hole, or, you know, who finds it hard to get out of bed in the morning. And it's all about that. It's all about talking about those things so you can find people who live those things and can live them with you and can understand, so you know that you're not alone. Because I think poor mental health and mental illness is such a lonely place. And I think that loneliness is what contributes to the feelings of mental illness more time, because of you thinking that there's no one that feels that way. There's no one who cares. There's no one to listen. And starting the conversation is just my way of saying, look, I'm with you. I do that. That happens to me. This is how I've got through it. And this is what I do. I'm going to reach out to you.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And yeah, it's incredible. I absolutely love your interviews. And I urge anyone to take time to listen to Elle and every interview that she's done so far. Maybe not my one, but yeah.
Your one. You dropped some gems in your one. Don't try and hide from that one. Thank you.
Another big question, I think, and you may not yet have an answer for it. What's the goal? Why are you doing this? Like, if you were to wake up tomorrow and you've achieved, and I say this and it's so corny, I guess, but if you were to wake up tomorrow and you've achieved exactly what you wanted with mental health and music and this movement, what is that? What does that look like to you?
Oh, wow. That is a dream right there. The goal is to have a big platform to send the message out, to live in a world where we can speak about how we feel, for people who are living with poor mental health, ill mental health, to not feel alone, for it to be okay to talk about how you feel, and for people around us to care. Yeah.
And it's amazing that you've picked music to do that in. I mean, like,
so?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. Like you said in the beginning, it was natural because that's what you love and that's what you've begun your work in, and it just made sense to do that with the people that you know. But music, and any art form, really, the creatives that create that art form put themselves in such a vulnerable position, like we've spoken about before. Every time they put a piece of art out there into the public, it's literally there for scrutiny and therefore negative feedback. Not always negative, but it can be, right? And that can be a really vulnerable and lonely place, like you said. So to encourage people who are really like standing naked sometimes in front of their fans to become comfortable talking about the issues that they've faced or the things that they think or they feel is like, it's such a beautiful thing.
I like that. Thank you so much.
Oh, that's okay.
I think it's something that needed to be done. I think it's something that, it started in lockdown, and I think lockdown was the time where everyone was sitting with their feelings, and sitting with your feelings is not always a good idea for too long. So then I came along and said, hey, sit and talk with your feelings, sit and talk with me.
Yeah, give me your feelings.
Give me your feelings. Let me take them on. Let me listen to you. Let me hear what you've got to say. Get it off your chest. And we're going to spread this formula around, and we're going to talk to different people about it, and different people are going to have different experiences, but some are the same, and you're going to see yourself in some of these people, and it's going to be a wonderful thing. Yeah. And
I've seen, the YouTube comments, the comments on your Insta lives. It's so clear that this is helping people, and not just in the music industry, just anyone that watches these interviews. You don't have to be a musician. You don't have to be an artist. You don't have to be in music to hear these conversations and hear what they're talking about, because they're talking about the human experience, right? So the appeal is so much larger than just the music scene. And I've seen so many positive comments and pieces of feedback from people that have watched you and really benefited from that as well.
I've had so much love, and I never ever thought that it would get as much love as it had. I didn't start with an intention, like I knew what the mission was. We've already spoken about the mission, and I'm so headstrong in the mission that I wasn't even thinking about actually I might get a comment where someone says that helped them, or they love this, and to hear those comments is really, really beautiful. It touches me every time I hear someone say that something has helped them, or they really liked it, or even just that they've watched, is enough for me. And it fills me with joy, man.
Well, that sounds like because it's coming from an authentic, genuine place for you. You're not doing it for the clout, or you're not doing it for the likes. You're not doing it because, everyone's discussing this topic at the moment, let me jump on board. You're doing it because it comes from, from a place of you, like within, like you want to do something different, and that's really clear.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that.
I've got all the compliments, Elle, seriously.
You never know how it's going to come out. I mean, it's just something that I do, so to speak. I enjoy doing it. I feel like it has to be done. I feel like I'm the one who's meant to do it. but you don't think of the feedback. You just put it out there, and then someone says, hey, it's cool, and you're like, wow. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And I suppose it is nice to hear that as well, because it's the reason that you're doing it. It really is, because if no one watched, then although you're having a fantastic conversation with that one person, it's amazing. And I felt like I was in a therapy session when we had our chat. It was incredible.
Sick.
But it's for that audience. It's for the people to hear.
Yeah, it's for people to listen to. It's for people to take something away. It's for people to see themselves in it. It's for people to, hold on to the gems that they find in there. It's for people to feel empowered, to feel seen, to feel heard, to feel like there's someone out there that's like them, all of those things. So yeah, we do need people to watch, and we do need people to listen for that reason. So can you tell us what plans do you have for mental health in music? Like, what are you doing with it now, and do you have any plans? So now at the moment we're on Mode, and I'm on the radio twice a month, second and fourth Tuesday. If I'm honest, I've not really thought too far ahead. You
don't have to see the whole staircase.
Don't have to see the whole staircase. Just the first step. We're on the first couple of steps, so we're just doing what we're doing for the moment, and wherever it takes me, synchronicity will show me the way, and it will come up, and I'll be there. Amazing.
Well, thank you so much for talking to me today.
Thank you for having me. I hope it's been good.
It's been incredible to get to know you. And how can people find you on your socials?
I am on Instagram and Twitter, tweeting away, Instagramming away all the time. Formosa X. That's ELFORMOSAX. So you can find me.
Yeah, follow up, and also hit Mode London up on YouTube.
And you can watch all of my videos.
Incredible interviews. Well, thank you so much, for coming in.
Thank you for having me. It's been a blast. Thank you.
Happy International Women's Day.
Happy International Women's Day.